It's time for the RotoWire Rundown. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. Of course, I'm joined by award-winning writer, fantasy specialist, the head golf senior writer there at RotoWire, Len Hochberg. Len, good day. You know what? I wasn't washed away at Pebble Beach. I lived through like almost a small hurricane on Sunday, and it was shelter in place up there. A pretty wild, crazy scene. I know you're getting that weather now in LA. I've moved an hour forward. I'm out in the desert, and there's more wet weather coming my way. How are you holding up there in LA? And good morning.
Good morning to you, Keith. And yeah, we are getting pounded here in Los Angeles. There is a lot of flooding and a lot of power outages. Thankfully, me and my family here in the San Fernando Valley, we are fine. Our no flooding by us or anything like that. But there are some real issues here. And it's unfortunate to say that a lot of times what happens in LA doesn't stay in LA. It goes to Phoenix a day or two later. So I think you're going to be getting some more weather.
Well, I tell you, it's going to end up being 3 weeks in a row that weather is going to affect these course conditions. Certainly, it happened last week, rain shortened 54-hole event. Now we're already expecting an inch of rain prior to the start of the tournament here at TPC Scottsdale. And if you're getting a ton of rain there, next week I'll be in LA with you at Riviera. So that golf course is going to be soft. And before we even get into TPC Scottsdale and the WM Phoenix Open and all the glory that this week has for the PGA Tour and all the fun for the fans and everything else, I'm always curious about something because you as an expert in the DFS space, there's so much commentary that a lot of our listeners probably hear from time to time. And that's, do you play certain waves, AM, PM, PM, AM for the first 36 holes based upon weather? How much do you factor in, the rain hitting the course here in the desert? I mean, I've been on property. The golf course is pretty much in perfect condition. I don't think an inch of rain is really going to hurt that because it's the desert. It's going to wash off. But like in general, before we get deep into Scottsdale here, how do you factor in the weather when you're putting together your lineups heading into a week where there's some question marks?
Yeah, it could very well be a difference. We see in tournaments from time to time, even majors, early or late or late or early gets the advantage. And that could be the determining factor in who wins a golf tournament. It's, it's unfortunate that that's what it's reduced to in sport, in this sport, but there's really no way around it. And a week like last week at Pebble Beach, where it was just so bad all across the board, it really didn't make much difference. But what I would do, I would certainly wait to lock your lineups. You have until the last minute to lock your lineups on Thursday morning, wherever time zone you're in. Check the latest weather forecast, check the tee times. There definitely could be an advantage to an early, late or late, early tee time. We're doing this on Tuesday morning. It is really too soon to tell. A lot can change in 48 hours. But yeah, I think that's a really important component to DFS. And there is no reason in a week like this where the weather is changing or the weather could change and be terrible that you should wait until the last minute to lock your lineup. And if you're deciding between two guys and one has a favorable tee time and one is on the wrong side of the draw, well, go with the favorable guy. It could be a difference maker in your game.
Let's take this to another level because I get this question all the time, and I'm sure you do too, as an expert in the DFS space. Do you like to split your lineups then for the weather? Do you load up on one wave versus another? Is there any kind of strategy there that you could, give us a look behind the curtain for a second? Because I'm always curious about all of this, and you're so deep into the DFS space. Like I am sure that you have a ton of best practices here, and give us one.
Well, I would not split if there's a definite advantage to one side or the other. Like a couple of weeks ago at Torrey Pines, where the South is so much harder than the North, you could play these one-round games. And this doesn't really affect this week, but just popped into my head that you play these one-round games and you play 6 guys on the North course on Thursday. And then you play another one-round game Friday and you pick 6 guys on the North course again. There's no reason. These are little things that are in little caveats that are, at certain tournaments and certain weeks. where you can get an edge. Here, of course, there's just one course, but with the weather the way it is, there may be a real advantage to a certain tee time. We don't know what that is yet, but so I would just say keep looking and wait till the last minute, and then lock your lineup. If someone locks their lineup on Monday, they may get lucky, but they may be shooting themselves in the foot.
For me, from a betting perspective, I look at it more like who likes to play in bad weather, or who in the past has played well in bad weather. I walked those golf courses last week up at Pebble, between Pebble and Spyglass, and you could just tell by the body language who was enjoying being there and who really wasn't enjoying being there. And as we've seen already this week, we've had a ton of withdrawals because it seems like it's just too much golf. The big names are gonna play LA. They played last week. And if their game wasn't in order, or they looked at the schedule and they said, with the weather, there's going to be more rain. They said, you know what, I'll take the week off. There's no point in me being there. This isn't a signature event this year like it was last year. So for me, it's definitely more of when I'm on property, I'm looking at the guys, their body language. Have they performed well in bad weather in the past? And then can I project that out for the course of the week? And I think that's actually a big part of it mentally. I also think the atmosphere, now if we get to start to talk about the WM Phoenix Open, this atmosphere is out of like a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup or the final round of a major championship for like 4 straight days. I mean, the fans are into this. I think I read somewhere that the WM Phoenix Open is the second largest attended outdoor sporting event, only behind the Summer Olympics. Now, the Olympics take like 20 days. This thing happens in 4. It's crazy how many people are there. Almost like 500,000 over the course of the 5 days that they open up the gates. It's really kind of insane. And I like to figure that there's a certain type of player that loves being here and maybe, making a hole in one on 16 and getting drowned in beers. But like, there's also a lot of guys that probably look at this like, you know what? It's definitely not my cup of tea and I'm going to move on. And I factor that for sure. But what are some of the other things that you're factoring for TPC Scottsdale, par 71, little over 7,200 yards? We're playing at elevation. What's the skill set that you're using for building your lineups?
Well, first of all, Keith, you're absolutely right that this is not for everyone. There are guys who can embrace the weather or at least handle the weather, and guys who cower in the face of rain. And the same thing with the atmosphere here. It could add a lot of pressure. You get to the 16th tee and you've got to hit your ball on the green or you're going to hear it. And it's not for everyone. But that said, the WM Phoenix Open is a ball strikers tournament. TPC Scottsdale, a ball strikers course. We see it every year. There's just a high correlation of excellent ball striking to victory and high finishes at this tournament, more than most weeks. If we look at the winners who've won here the last 9 years, and not to get sidetracked, but we've had like 100-1 shots or 90-1 and over every week this year. We'll look at the last 9 winners in Phoenix: 2 Scottie Schefflers, 2 Brooks Koepkas, 2 Hideki Matsuyamas, a Webb Simpson, a Ricky Fowler, and a Gary Woodland. So we're not looking, those are all strong players, or were at the time of their victory. So I don't think we're going to see a real long shot emerge this week. But ball striking, Scheffler is the best of them all. Hideki Matsuyama, great ball striker. You can get away with subpar putting on the POA greens here. I think POA sort of brings some of the better putters down to earth a little bit to begin with. That, in as much as it sounds odd, that lets the lesser putters get an advantage. And Scottie Scheffler has putted quite well here 2 years ago, second in the field in strokes gained putting, last year 13th. And the last thing I'll say, besides ball striking and somewhat decent putting, getting away with poor putting, is the par 5s. 3 short 4 par 5s, all under 560. You've got to murder them. You've got to kill them. You've got to score on them because someone who's on top of the leaderboard will.
I mean, you said it there. 8 of the last 9 guys, those are major champions. These guys are ball strikers. The only one that's not is Ricky Fowler, and he's been a great ball striker throughout his career. There's no doubt about that. For me, you look at some of those names: Gary Woodland, Hideki, Scottie, Brooks. I think power is a huge, huge factor here. and definitely not a skill set that everyone possesses. Yes, I know you're going to say Webb Simpson or somebody like that could win here, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if you can keep the ball on the green, which I mean by that is the fairway or the rough, because there's very little rough here. If you can keep it out of the desert and you can bomb it, you have a huge advantage. We're playing at over 1,200 feet of elevation. So that 7,200 yards is much shorter than that. You already mentioned the par fives. There are some short par fours. There's 11 par fours. Par four scoring, the last 5 winners here have gained over 12 strokes on the field with par four scoring. Certainly the putting, that Poa Trivialis overseed. A lot of people see the word Bermuda this week, but it's an overseed, folks. And that blending of the Poa on the Bermuda is almost going to play like bent. If I was running a model, I would run it like bent. I would not run it like Poa out there in Pebble and Farmers, and I wouldn't run it like Bermuda at all. It's certainly not like Florida. So, from that perspective, those are the types of factors that I'm favoring going into this week. Mid-iron play. I mean, look at the guys who are winning here. Scottie, Hideki, Brooks, excellent, really sharp mid-iron players. The greens are over 7,000 square feet on average. That's big by PGA Tour standards. So proximity to the hole is a huge factor here. And a large majority of your approach shots are coming from between 175 yards and 225 when you start to count the par fives and that second shot in. So I think that's really a place that people can separate themselves. Average winning score, 17 under par over the last 10 years. And as we've already talked about, over the last 10 years, the average pre-tournament winning odds are plus 3,800. So there's a lot of people that are near the chalk or in that lower middle tier that have had great success here. And as a result, that leads us right into the names. So it's funny because as we get into DFS and we start to look at the 10Ks, your 10K range took a hit this week. Victor dropped out on Sunday. Xander dropped out on Monday, right? We're left with 2 names, I think, in the 10K range. Do you take any of them, Len?
Yeah, well, I can't remember the last time that I've picked Scottie Scheffler in one of my articles because his putting has been so poor. I mean, when you're the top price guy, a top 5 finish won't really do it. If you're picking an $11,000 guy or $11,500 guy, you pretty much need a win. And Scheffler has not been delivering. And if you want to exclude the Hero World Challenge, and I do, it's back to the players. It's 11 months since he's won. But this is a week to turn to Scottie Scheffler. He's won here twice in a row. So, he could play. And he's putted well here. And he's actually putting a little bit better this year than last year. Still, in the wrong side of good, but better than he's coming around. Justin Thomas has been playing great wherever and for a number of months now. And, I do like him as well. He's going to be a super popular pick in probably every betting DFS format, one and done anywhere. Moving into the 9,000s, Sung J.M., great ball striker, I think, just really plays well at this course. Sahith Theegala, not the best ball striker, but super strong short game, and they love him here, and he was embraced here. And that is another thing to factor in. If the crowd is going to get behind you and root for you, and you have a special place where he had his coming out moment, that is something I take into consideration as well. 8,000s, Ben On, playing great. Adam Scott came up very high in my model. I was very surprised. Ball striking very well, driving very well, putting pretty well. 7,000s, Brian Harman, number 10 in the world in the 7,000s. I just thought that was a value play. Akshay Bhatia, ball striker. Last year, and speak about his putting improvement, 183rd in putting last year, 16th this year. He's gone to the long broomstick putter. Down, way down, Eric Van Rooyen, Sam Ryder, Scott Stallings could be good to help you fill out your lineup.
How about down in those guys down in the 6K range? EVR, Stallings, is that where you're finding them?
Van Rooyen is just above at 71, but Sam Ryder and Scott Stallings are in the 6,000s.
How about, I go back to like the whole discussion about like Wyndham Clark. He was mid 7s last week. Now he's in the 9s. When a guy jumps like that, do you still follow him, or is he now overvalued?
Oh, I think we have to get used to that. That sometimes a guy is 8,000 and the next week he's 9,000. It's all related to the field. It doesn't change. That's his value that week, and that's where he sits. The reason I would avoid William Clark, it's just so hard to win two in a row, basically because it's very hard to win one in a row. So but he does have a great skill set for this tournament. I always say his two best clubs are driver and putter, and that's going to play well at pretty much just about any course you go.
When I look at the 8Ks, there's, Hideki sitting there, Ricky's sitting there, and there's horses for courses. Obviously, Hideki is probably top one or two in strokes gained career at, TPC Scottsdale. But you also have names like Eric Cole, who's just been unstoppable. I mean, how much do you weigh horses for courses for Hideki, or would you jump on the Cole train?
Yeah, well, Eric Cole is unstoppable in the sense that he never takes a week off. He's played every week so far. He's making Sung Jae In look like a slacker. He's playing this week. This is what, week 6? He's playing next week, week 7. I mean, if he plays, what is it, Mexico the week after Riviera, come on. He has played well. He had one bad week, but he came back last week and he played pretty well. But, actually last week is very hard for me to consider. There were so many things that were, can't put too much weight. 3 rounds, preferred lies the whole time, bad weather. It's really hard to use that as a strong indicator. Hideki Matsuyama just has not been playing well. He just keeps falling and falling and falling in the world rankings. And we could talk about what the world rankings are, but he's just not been playing well. And yes, it's every week it's something. Yes, he plays great here, but he's not playing well now. That's the age-old question: course form or recent form. And I've chose to go a recent form with Hideki and avoid him this week.
I've got a quick 7K story for you. So play gets canceled on Sunday out there at Pebble, and I've got to find lunch. So I go to Jersey Mike's to go grab a sub, and I was craving a cheesesteak. So I walk into this hoagie store, and who do I see sitting there eating lunch? But 7K Tom Hoagie, right? Great approach player. It's unbelievable. Like Tom Hoagie's eating a hoagie. I just had to laugh. I had to put it out there on Twitter. It cracked me up. But, there's a guy who's an unbelievable approach player. He's obviously very good at that one skill. He's won before. Can you allow one skill like that to put Tom Hoagie in your 7Ks in the lineup and then, kind of ride that particular, part of his craft? Or do you need a little bit more when it comes to somebody like when you're looking at the skill set and you also want to see that they're also, good in the desert or some other skill? It just can't just be one of those factors.
I think it depends on the week. There are some courses that really require a golfer to use every club in his bag to succeed. I don't think that's one of those. This is one of those weeks, the heavy emphasis on ball striking. And yeah, especially in this, would I pick an 11,000, 10,000, 11,000 guy who's really strong in one area and weak in a lot of others? No, probably not. But in the 7,000s or certainly the 6,000s, you want to get to the weekend and then hopefully you catch a little luck, maybe a good weather side of the weekend draw, and you can make a run. So yeah, I would very much consider a very, very strong ball striker. And I did include a few strong ball strikers down here. Eric Van Rooyen playing really well right now as well. Very strong ball striking the last recent few months. So yeah, I would consider Tom Hoagie, even if he's eating a hoagie.
It was just, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. Adam Hadwin was in there too, by the way. Got to give him some props. He's been playing well lately, and he's had a good history here in the desert as well. Now, from a betting perspective, I know people want to get a couple names from me. I'm going to throw a couple JTs at you, and no Justin Timberlake. We're skipping that. There's enough Taylor Swift talk at the Super Bowl. I'm going with Justin Thomas. He was ranked second in the field at Pebble in really challenging conditions, tee to green. And I watched him play on Saturday with Patrick Cantlay, and I tell you what, he's hitting the ball like what JT is known for. The arm speed control, the approach with the wedges, the short game, everything is really, really strong. There's a little more room, like I said, to keep it, in between the desert cacti here. So off the tee, I think that's one of the reasons why 4 of the last 5 years, JT's at a top 10 here. And let's face it, Where does JT play his best golf? He plays it in the biggest arenas. It starts with the Ryder Cup. So, like, I think he loves the atmosphere here. So Justin Thomas, for me, at the chalk at the top, I think he's going to be a very popular pick. But guess what? At 10 to 1, 11 to 1, 12 to 1, whatever you can get him at, it's 12 to 1. So it's better than any bet that you're going to get one-on-one, when you look towards Super Bowl Sunday. And the second person, I'm going to go with JT Poston. And you kind of alluded this earlier, whatever the official world golf rankings mean. Well, if you enjoy a site like Data Golf, JT Poston is the 12th ranked golfer in the world. In 8 of his last 10 events, he's been gaining considerably on approach, and we already know how he can putt. So if you're looking for a guy who's top 3 in birdie or better percentage, that, his biggest weakness is with the driver, much like Justin Thomas, this place, it allows you, look at Sahith, look at some of the other guys that have played well here that aren't great drivers of the golf ball. I think you have to figure a guy like JT Poston can be a guy who could deliver. He's in that range of winners, right around plus 3,000, plus 3,500. You're going to find him right in that range. So I love him as well. What are your thoughts on either one of those JTs?
Well, both of them are in my article. I mentioned Thomas briefly a moment ago. I don't mention all the guys who are in my article because I speak enough as it is on these videos. But my article is up on RotoWire, and you can see all my picks there and a further explanation of why I picked them. And JT Poston is there. He's favorably priced. Was he in the upper 8s this week? Yep. And he's been playing great all year. He's had a lot of high finishes since January, with all the way back in January. No, he's playing very well this year. So I'm right with you on him as well. And even though putting is not the key emphasis this week, if you putt great, you're going to do pretty well in most places anyway. So yeah, if you can putt great here when everyone else is putting meh, well, that's even more of an advantage.
Well, you mentioned it right there. When we're together next week, Len, you and I are going to be together for the rundown. I'll be in LA. You live in LA. It's going to be Riviera. I bet we even get a tiger sighting. And who knows what he'll be wearing. I know there's a lot of controversy or talk or chatter about that as well. So if you love the rundown, Tuesday mornings, check out Len and I. Len Hochberg from RotoWire. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. Thanks for joining us.
I just hope he's not wearing rain gear next week. Bye, guys.